All our good deeds are repaid in the most unexpected ways. Some are pretty shocking. In this case, Kevin experienced something different than usual. An elderly man named Kevin, who suffered from the most traumatic events in his life, rescues a rat from a bunch of cats attacking it and becomes attached to the rat. He sees the rat as his companion and uses it as a distraction after losing his wife. However, when he became too old to search for meals to survive his days, the rat pays him back for how he took care of him for several years and saves Kevin's life when he was at his lowest. Have you ever imagined a tiny rat saving an elderly man's life? This story is about a poor elderly man who took care of a small rat when he lost everything in his life, and how the rat repays his kindness in a shocking twist of events. Kevin was an older adult who had lived through World War II along with his wife. He had survived the conflict to see better days ahead of him, something he had hoped for during the battles, but had never imagined would become a reality. One day, he was sitting in the garden with his great-grandson when he asked him a fascinating question. The boy wanted to know how his great-grandfather had survived the war and its atrocities, which was bound to be a miracle. Surprisingly, Kevin had a good memory, even at the age of 90. He could vividly recollect those moments as he took a deep breath to recall all that occurred during his wartime day. It was his core memory, because significant moments and hardships like this are not easily forgotten. He explained by drawing comparisons between the two times regarding the lack of luxuries and the scarcity of fresh water and food at that time. Kevin served for his country in the first war that broke out and suffered from severe injuries, such as shrapnel wounds, which affected his health. So he could not continue after that. He was in his 60s when World War II broke out, and due to his older age and deteriorating health, he was unable to serve his nation. As a result, he had very nothing to do during the war. He also worked as a tailor, but his company turned to dust when the war started. Many companies shut down, which led to many people losing their source of income. This is when poverty rises. As a result, he and his wife were left penniless and without any practical means of earning money. For their benefit, there were shelters provided to people in need, from which they could get some warm cooked foods like cereal, soups, and even some stews. When they were in need of money, Kevin and others in his circumstances would pawn items from their home in order to have some extra cash to be able to survive. The battle had gotten brutal by the time winter arrived, and their life continued in this way until then. The resources that were available before were no longer there. The kitchen that fed Kevin and his wife had to shut down, leaving many people in need of food. Kevin and his wife stood by each other through these challenging times, and saw the worst situations due to World War II. Even though there wasn't enough food to keep everyone well fed, Kevin pushed to retain a positive attitude towards life and did everything he could to survive in that situation. However, when the spring season came to an end, another significant event in Kevin's life occurred, which was the passing of his wife, who was his only companion during the hard times. She fell severely ill and passed away after 3 days. As he on his way home one day, Kevin came across some cats surrounding something, and as he looked closely, he found a small rat who was scared and curled up. He immediately picked up the little fella and kept him close to his chest to provide the rat a sense of warmth and comfort. As he became all alone after his wife's death, he knew he needed someone to be with him. The rat became his companion. He brought him back to his room, where he fed him sugar and water. The little being began to move and breathe again. Kevin was thrilled that the rat would survive and vowed to take care for it as best he could. As a result, every time he went to the shelter, he returned a small piece of bread for his rat friend. He took care of his rat friend religiously. When Kevin arrived home, the rat would always rush out of his tiny space and joyfully eat the bread. As another harsh winter approached, Kevin had little to trade for food or money. Yet he persisted because of his small companion. On days when Kevin wasn't feeling well, he would lie on his bed. His energy used to be low because of a lack of appetite, as he could not afford to eat or even feed his rat. Even those times, Kevin kept himself distracted and used his time to teach the rat little tricks, such as fetching buttons or coin-like things, walking on its back legs, and even coming when called. These little activities gave Kevin something to concentrate on, and spending time with the rat helped him pass 4 years of his life after his wife's death. It assisted him in getting through some of the most difficult times of his life. But the rat did something utterly amazing when Kevin was truly at risk of dying. The economic situation was still worse, and the news they were reading in the newspapers didn't accurately reflect the scenario, which was that cities were cut off from food sources and people were becoming hungry. The time got even more difficult as the winter season became colder than usual, and people struggled to keep themselves warm, even if they were inside or outside. People even fought to get materials like wood to survive that season. Kevin believed his time had run out at that point. Also, food was exceedingly scarce, and Kevin and the others were only getting about a quarter of what they had at first. Kevin started to believe that there were younger individuals who were more energetic and deserving than him. So some days he wouldn't even bother to try to get food because getting it required too much energy. Kevin was worried that his time was running out, since he felt very old and fragile. At this point, all he had left were the clothes on his body and a little blanket that he had cherished for all these years. He accepted his physical condition and lay down one day and didn't get up. He used to communicate with his rat companion whenever he was awake, but frequently, when he became exhausted, he would go back to sleep. As he opened his eyes one morning, the rat was just gone. He summoned all of his remaining energy to call his small companion, but received no response. He convinced himself that he had lost his second companion too, probably because of not providing him food consistently. He didn't hate it, but he was saddened by the absence of his companion. Kevin closed his eyes and fell asleep again after his energy drained. When he awoke a few hours later, he was faced with something that was hard for him to believe. He repeatedly massaged his eyes as he could not believe the shocking act by the rat. It was like he was rewarded for all the kind gestures he had done for the rat. In front of him, a small rat was standing, and 3 old, historical gold coins were lying on the ground. These coins were quite valuable during that time. He could easily afford a good amount of food. He had just been saved by the rat, and he just couldn't believe the possibility of it. Kevin found the strength, took the coin to a nearby store, was able to exchange it for a handful amount of money, and then used that money to purchase a huge bag of grain, one that would enable him to survive for a couple of months. He made his way as quickly as he could to home. He made porridge to eat while he sobbed. 4 years later, the rat saved his life, proving that his modest act of charity towards a helpless creature had paid off all those years earlier. Kevin looked at his great-grandson, who had awe in his eyes after listening to such an inspiring and wholesome story. One which has hardships, along with companionship and a thoughtful way of dealing with difficult circumstances. Now, who would have thought that a small rat could save a life just like that? Would he have lived off this long without his companion? The younger generation will never be able to understand or imagine the hardships our great-great-grandparents and people who were present during the war days went through. However, now you know how Kevin was able to survive the war and how a little creature can have a significant impact on one's life. Only a few people go out of their way to protect and save little creatures. Therefore, those who commit such acts experience different ways of life, full of surprises as it unfolds. Kindness does make a difference in everyone's lives, be it a small animal or an adult. In response to the story, what part did you find most interesting? Please let us know what you think. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.